Hello and welcome to Positive Parenting. I'm Deanne Conrad, Community Relations Supervisor for the Sioux Falls School District. Thanks for joining us today on Positive Parenting. It is an effort between the medical and child development professionals of Sanford Health and also our educational professionals from the Sioux Falls School District. We always have plenty to talk about. Today our topic is really about your kids, their health, and exercise. And gosh, I think we can all agree that we don't get as much exercise as we need, and sometimes the right type of exercise as well. I have guests here to join me in this conversation today, and Phil, I'm going to start with you. If you'll just introduce yourself, please.
Sure. My name is Phil Carmody. I work at the Sanford Wellness Center as the Membership and Programming Supervisor.
Awesome. Thanks, Phil. And?
My name is Chris Andersen, and I am the instructional coach for the Sioux Falls School District in physical education.
Awesome. So you're out, Chris, working with our PE teachers, giving them ideas about things that can be done, new maybe techniques or things like that that are coming in physical education and such.
Yes, exactly. Going about helping them, making sure that best practices are being done in the physical education classroom.
Awesome. And Phil, your role, you get out, I suppose, as membership person. You get out on the floor a little bit from time to time as well?
Absolutely. I get to kind of help out with the membership department and kind of help oversee kind of some of the operational things there, as well as kind of help along our exercise specialists and personal trainers training and then scheduling and things of that nature.
Awesome.
And then outside of that, I kind of have a handful of clients that I keep myself to.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thanks for being here today to talk a little bit about the health and wellness of our children. And really there's, it seems like our kids are super, super busy these days with lots of different activities. And some of those activities are good, healthy activities, and some are just time wasters like video games and things like that. But in terms of what we want for exercise for kids, what is the standard? Is there a standard for the right amount of exercise for kids? Chris?
I don't know if there's a standard. There's the recommendations.
Sure.
So the recommendation is that a kid gets about 60 minutes of activity a day. If they can, do a variety of different things with that, that would work best. But a kid getting outside, a kid maybe even going to a facility where they can do something, anything where they're getting about 60 minutes of activity a day.
Okay, so that means off the couch activity. That does not mean the sedentary types of activity where kids are just exercising their thumbs, whether that be on the phone or
Yes.
that type of thing. When you're working with clients and such, are you encouraging a variety of activities for them? I know I kind of get stuck in my own rut, and I think that's easy to do. Why is it important for kids not to get stuck in the same rut of one exercise that they do?
Well, I think just like adults, if anybody does any one activity, eventually you're either gonna, kind of lose the consistency of doing activity due to boredom, due to, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, especially with kids, I think that's the most important part is keeping the activity dynamic to keep their attention. If you've ever tried to keep a kid's attention longer than 5 minutes, I mean, that's a task in itself. So,
Absolutely.
I think activities should go along the same lines.
Right, and I know we've done a lot of work in that area in our physical education classes, where there's a lot of involvement of kids. I remember growing up and, you stood in line and waited for your turn, and that wasn't necessarily, we weren't getting that constant activity. But what kinds of things are we seeing in our PE classes in that regard?
Yeah, what we like to do is have them doing as much movement from the beginning of class to the end of class. They come into the gym, and whatever activity they're doing, it's constant movement, locomotor type of movement, where they're working on skills like skipping, hopping, jumping, running, and then jump roping. Another great activity that they can do. So through the whole course of the class period, you want as little time where they're standing around or standing in a line for sure. So you would create games where partner activities or individual activities, or even a small group activity where it's 3 of them, so they can have the space and all 3 of them are active and practicing maybe whatever skill that is together.
Okay, awesome. And I know that we do, as a district, we're tracking results and data from our students as well in terms of, their, it's the product I think is called FitnessGram.
FitnessGram
So
testing.
what does that all entail?
The FitnessGram testing is just that's a company or software, and so it's called that, where they test their ability to cardiovascular fitness with the PACER test, a beep style test, which is used in a lot of with professional sports teams and fitness centers, where they get a baseline on somebody's aerobic capacity, and then the muscular tests, push-ups, curl-ups, flexibility tests of the trunk lift, and the sit and reach test. So getting a quick overall view of what they're at with their fitness level and their whole body, and then as they progress through the course of the year, they're going to make hopefully an improvement on what their score was from the beginning of the year to the end of the year.
I certainly hear my kids talking about the PACER tests. I know how many beeps they've done, and boy, they keep track of that. And I think it's a sense of setting goals also for kids, a good way for them to say, okay, I was here, and now, the next time I'm going to try to get here.
It's a great way to challenge themselves. It's great, self-motivation. If they can make 40 of them or whatever, and that teacher's going to push them the next time to, improve a little bit, maybe get to 45 or 50 and keep working their way up. So.
Right. How important is it for goals? I think we all have that point, whether it's your New Year's resolution or whether it's, when I turn 40, I'm gonna do this, or whatever the case is. But goal setting for kids in this regard as well, is that important?
I think so. I mean, honestly, I think the training for kids and adults is very similar. It's just a slightly different approach. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, anybody has internal motivation, and so you have to kind of say, okay, what's a kid's internal motivation? Usually it's, I want to be able to keep up with so-and-so, or I want to do this or do that. So I think it's just as important for kids to set goals too, so that they can continue to try to improve their, whatever their fitness goals are too.
Right. I know a lot of times, having my own children in activities, they talk a lot about being a well-rounded athlete. If you're going, if you're involved in that, maybe some kids are one-sport athletes, and they're just set on that particular sport. What's the right answer to that? I mean, my kids are all multi-sport athletes and better in some sports. Just participants in other sports, which is great. But what do we say about that one sport athlete versus the multi-sport athlete? Chris?
That's can be kind of maybe a double-edged sword on what one person would say to another person.
Sure.
I think, don't want to speak for any coaches here or anything like that, but I think there's sometimes coaches would like to have their athletes really working on their sport, and other coaches are more apt to having a kid that will do more than one sport or be a multi-sport athlete.
Different philosophy.
Yeah,
kind of
I think a multi-sport athlete, and some of the research and some of the things that I've seen on them, is that it creates a kid that is ready to take on any challenge, because they're so used to they're going through the process of changing how they do things all the time. So they're constantly wanting to improve and get better, because they have all these things that they have to be working on.
And maybe their season is, from this time to this time is football season, and this time to this time is basketball season. So they're, is that the change you're kind of talking about?
Like right now, high school wise, if you looked at it, both boys and girls went from volleyball to basketball, and boys are going from football to basketball. So those boys
and wrestling. I'm a huge wrestling fan.
Yep, and gymnastics for the girls.
Absolutely.
So that's the first main transition if you're looking at like high school type of kids.
Right.
Younger kids, I know of popularity and stuff a lot of times with girls, they're in dance. So they're in dance is a very, very popular activity for young girls, and they'll maybe doing a sport also. Maybe they play basketball or volleyball and doing their dance too.
Right.
So a kid that's able to do a variety of different things, works different muscle groups, works different things mentally. So I think it's a real challenge in those kids that do multi-sports. I know is a really positive thing, great thing.
That wear and tear, if you're a one sport athlete, we won't make anybody lock horns here on which is the right answer there. So very politically correct the way you stated that, Chris. But sometimes the wear and tear on certain muscle groups can be a challenge. And I know in basketball, my daughter, they're really working on some leg things because they've seen a lot of, is it knee injuries?
Like ACL tears and things like that.
Yeah, so that can be a concern as well.
Absolutely. Well, I think Chris kind of exuded to this a little bit of by switching the sports, it kind of works different muscle groups or affects muscle groups a little bit differently. And that's kind of the same idea with doing multi-sports versus doing a single sport. You get to affect these different large muscle groups and these complex movements in just slightly different ways and things like that, which can actually help prevent some injuries down the road by making these muscles, joints, tendons, things like that a little bit, I guess, more well-rounded. They get affected in a few different variety of ways and things like that to kind of help holistically prepare the athlete.
Right.
In
Right,
the future.
and keep them healthy. Certainly, unfortunately, I've known 10-year-olds that have an ACL tear or that type of thing, which is, the young body recovers quickly, but it's still a pretty significant injury for a young person.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
kids that young, typically their bodies are really resilient to ligament or tendon tears and things like that, just because they're so flexible and elastic and things like that. They're usually much tougher to get those types of injuries. So if there's kids that young receiving those injuries, it's probably important to reflect on, okay, what activities is this kid doing and what can we do to prevent this in the future.
Strengthen them so that they're preventing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So that injury that I was referring to was a wrestling injury, which obviously is a sport where you're stretched and
Sure.
moved in a variety of different ways.
Yep.
But just the regular basic kinds of exercise that kids are doing, that is also helpful in injury prevention in the future as well, right? So their activity in the gym class or physical education class is building a stronger basis for injury prevention in the future.
I think that we look at that and we will try and create activities that work on strengthening the knee, strengthening the hips, doing your squatting and your lunging, teaching them the proper techniques and that great activity, and one that parents can do at home, and might be one that parents that don't work out a lot or don't understand, is learning how to do planks and the different varieties of planks out there. And that's a great for getting that core and starting to work on that core stability, and what you can do is do those, during a commercial or whatever,
Right.
everybody you're watching, your family's watching a TV show, we're going to do, we're doing our plank night or whatever, and when it
Wow.
goes to commercial, maybe it's a regular forearm plank to start with on the first commercial, and then you watch your show, and then maybe you go right plank, left plank, or something like that.
You're
so
giving me
great
something
activity
to think about
right
here.
Great.
I really don't watch a whole lot of TV, so I wouldn't have time to do that during a commercial break.
So that,
Yeah.
that's just a simple way to, if you're talking about families being involved and making those connections with the parents and kids, or if the parent asks, well, what'd you do in PE or physical education? You could say, hey, we went through and we're working on this, so
Right.
here's a way that we can connect it as a
Do
family.
it. Exactly. Well, that the fact that you brought up the plank piece there, it makes me think too, is a lot of times people are thinking, oh, you have to go to the gym, which obviously you'd love to see, Phil, right? You'd love to see those faces at the gym.
Absolutely.
Certainly. But there are activities you can do and can focus on that don't require equipment or don't require you to really leave home. What are some of those activities that you would encourage maybe families to do together, or things that parents can encourage their kids to be doing?
Well, I think Chris was right on pace with, during commercial breaks you could be doing a plank challenge with the family, or you can be doing squats and things like that, or what we call functional strength exercises, where it's just you manipulating your own body weight. Anything from lunges, you can do stairs, you can take the dog for a longer walk, that's activity. The family can go for hikes in the winter, maybe they go snowshoeing. I mean, there's tons of things that they can do at home or even outside of the gym that they can do to, incorporate some activity and things like that.
Just some simple outdoor time in the snow, moving those boots along, that you have to be wearing.
Shoveling snow.
Yeah, shoveling.
Shoveling's great.
Well, there
Absolutely.
you go. We'll get some work done in the
There you
process here. But all of those things are activity, and sometimes we think about, the kids have been sitting around or watching TV and doing whatever, they need to do whatever, in terms of activity. But really just those basic getting outside and being active
Just moving.
Works as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you guys know that commercial breaks are usually like around 2 and 2.5 minutes long? Because that's a long time to plank. I'm not
Maybe
sure.
you could switch up when it transitions
Okay.
That's where goal setting comes in,
Goal
right?
setting,
There you
sure.
go. Yep, it's
Wow. I
You
need
would
to go
start
ahead.
out slow. You would start out slow, so you could even time yourself, or something like that.
Right.
Work your way through
Right.
to where you get to those,
Right.
the full commercial.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, that'll be a goal I'll have to set in the future. But yeah, challenging regardless, I guess. So and that's what goals are supposed to be. So in terms of the activity level of kids, what do you see? How long have you been in physical education? And are our kids as sedentary as we like to say they are? Or are they?
I've been teaching in the Sioux Falls School District for 24 years. This is my
Okay.
24th year. And I've been at the middle school level for all of those except for this new position. So I see the kids after they've had some experiences and they've already developed some
Sure.
skills and some things like that. And I think overall, most kids still want to be active, and they come to our classroom and they're ready to be active and do what we want them to do. I think maybe even in the classroom they're more apt to do it like when they're in the school setting or in our PE class, where maybe outside of school they might not be as motivated. I would say there has been probably a slight decline on the number of kids that maybe are 100% going for it every day when they
Right.
come in there. But I think that's just a natural way with the change in our society.
Right. It is a societal thing.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be an excuse either. I mean, and we can, that encouragement, I know our physical education teachers are doing a lot of encouraging and
Yes.
just.
And trying to have them, even I know that there's a lot of them that'll connect with, parents, maybe send a newsletter or something in the newsletter, or we could get them. End of October, they had Bring Your Parent to PE. And so there was a few schools that had, the parents could come in
Activities.
for the day whenever they could fit in their schedule on one of those days and go through PE class with their son or daughter. So
Right. And it is that sort of partnership. We think about working out, and you talked about boredom too. It is a real deal, I guess. I mean, I get bored sometimes with my activity as well. But sometimes even if you're watching that TV show or whatever, what can we be doing can we walk on the treadmill during the TV show or whatever the case is?
At home specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you have a treadmill at your, disposal to use, I mean, yeah, you can absolutely be using that during those commercial breaks. There's tons of different, even like little circuit exercises that you could do. You know, if you don't want to hold a plank for 2.5 minutes, maybe you're doing, say before the commercial ends, you want to knock out 10 push-ups, 10 squats, and then maybe for the rest of the duration, hold a wall sit or something of that nature. I mean, that you can constantly mix it up and do simple things at home to get your activity in.
Right. I think when there are focuses like that, I think, oh yeah, we can do that. We're gonna go gangbusters. We're gonna do that. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, why did we stop doing that?
Yeah.
And it's that habit forming thing or goal setting. Really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Exercise has to be something you do on a regular basis, just not peaks and valleys, because there's a whole lot of opportunity for valleys.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So what do you see in terms of the most common injury, do you think, in young people right now?
Oh, I think the injury that we like relating back to sports or PE class in general, I think that an ankle injury is going to be the one that you see the most of the time, a rolled ankle or something like that. And then I think sometimes hands and fingers types of injuries, wrist, something like that, or maybe they were whatever they were doing and they maybe had to lose their balance or something.
Catch a fall.
Catch a fall.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
We were recently. Go ahead.
And just going back to, I think those are probably the most common ones we see. Now, a kid that's going to be more athletic and doing a specific sport type of activity, then I think you run into the more type of, shoulders or knees injuries.
That kind of thing. But again, that constant or at least consistent exercise can build the strength and tone of those muscles to keep them.
Yep.
Keep them
variety.
healthy. Yeah. And actually, like enough. Obviously, the good nutrition is important as well, and drinking enough water.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of times I'm the pusher of water. The sports drinks are good in some regards, and then I just heard something the other day about chocolate milk. I think the USF student athletes are drinking a lot more chocolate milk and that kind of thing. So, encouraging kids, importance of encouraging them to get all the right kind of liquids also is important.
Absolutely. I mean, with, a lot of kids drink, sports drinks and things like that during their sedentary times when it's, designed to help recover them and fuel activity. So water is best for those situations, but they definitely have their place. The whole chocolate milk thing is on the rise too, just because of its balance of proteins and simple sugars in it for rebalancing the sugars after activity. So it's used for a recovery supplement or drink, if you will. So all those drinks have their places, and nutrition definitely plays a very strong role into that activity. Keeping
the kids active and healthy, but then again, you balance those sports drinks, as Phil said. If you're drinking them in your downtime,
that's it. Yeah.
Not a good.
Yeah, if you're just using them like you would to drink, they're not serving the correct
right
purpose or intent.
Yeah. So, important to do that, and rather than just grabbing that, whatever you think out of the vending machine. It's pretty important to think about what you're putting in your body and when you're putting it in your body as well.
Sure.
So, that full balance, and then sleep. That's important to exercise as well. That you have to have kind of a good balance to make sure you're healthy, and when you're out and about.
Yes,
8 hours.
Sleep in high school kids.
I know.
I'm
It's
not sure, but
right?
I have a son that's already graduated high school and two that are currently in high school, and sleep is always a
challenge.
Yes, always a challenge with schoolwork and with activities and things like that. So I think that's a challenge. They need to get their rest, and I think I'm not sure, but there's been some studies and looked at on like sleep and injuries with kids. So kids that don't get enough sleep might be more prone to an injury during activity.
And that just seems like it would make sense too, is if you're fatigued and you're feeling
Yep.
less than fresh when you're doing a workout, one simple step or something like that could really cause an injury. of that magnitude. We're coming up on the end of our time here, and I know that there are, in the news you hear kids doing all kinds of crazy things, like climbing Mount Everest and doing all kinds of cliff type activities and things like that. And yeah, those are kids who did not just wake up that morning and decide that they're going to climb Mount Everest. But there's a lot of training that could be done, should be done, and we really as parents need to push that and encourage it.
Yeah, and if you want to be active in your child's life and you want to be in a sports or activity or a part of it, then you should be active with them, maybe in it, maybe doing the activities with them, or learning, or if you have experience with them, or making sure they're getting the proper training. If you're looking at doing something that might be on the different
More
higher end or
challenging.
challenging end or something like that. So making that family connection with the activity is really good. Challenging them with maybe something that they're not used to or you're not used to, but you need to also maybe learn
Along with them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's good, and that's obviously at Family Wellness Center, something you guys focus on is something for everyone, really.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had clients as young as 8 years old, all the way up to 60, 70. So I think there's training can benefit literally anyone of all ages. It's more or less the part that gets skipped is the proper technique of it. I think you can, as soon as someone's mature enough in order to accept instruction and things like that, they can start receiving training. And I think that would really benefit, especially kids all the way on up.
Right. Get them started. If you get them started properly
Exactly.
when they're young, then they have a better chance of maintaining the proper techniques.
Get a head start on everyone else.
Awesome. Very good. Well, thanks, guys, for joining us. Certainly appreciate it. I think it's a topic we can continue to talk about, because if you're on a kick and you're doing well with exercise, awesome, keep it up. But it's real easy to fall out of that habit, and so hopefully this is a good reminder, maybe a motivation for you and your family to get off the couch and get moving again. So do it, and do it in a way that is healthy for your body. Thanks so much for joining us today on Positive Parenting.